Hello, my friends. Today, despite a slight decrease in Russian offensive actions, the situation remains extremely tense. They continue shelling Ukrainian positions intensively and are preparing for new assaults. In the Kursk region, the Russian counteroffensive is in full swing. Unfortunately, they've seen some significant success and are advancing quite actively for now. On the first day, we recorded a 6.5 kilometer advance in two directions. Then yesterday, they managed to push 8 kilometers and 800 meters towards Olhivka. The front line was pushed back 2 kilometers and 200 meters from Kreminna, which Ukrainian forces have nearly surrounded. Similar, they moved 7 kilometers closer to the village of Apanasivka. But that's not all. Russians have already claimed that Apanasivka has come under Russian control, so their advance continues, and it seems that we should expect more changes on the map soon. Zelensky states that everything is going according to plan, but it's hard to imagine that such a quick retreat from the Kursk region was part of the plan. Meanwhile, it seems Ukrainian forces have launched an offensive in the Hlushkivskiy district. It's confirmed that Ukrainian forces have taken a small 1 kilometer section under their control, and offensive actions continue. Even Russian military bloggers noted late yesterday that the situation there is tough. Hlushkivskiy district, Kursk region, the enemy is actively pushing toward the settlements of Hlushkivskiy. Information is coming in that with the support of tanks, the enemy has entered the village of Vesela. The Russian aerospace forces are actively engaging the advancing Ukrainians. Tonight will be difficult for our forces. Overall, this situation is developing in an interesting way. In the Sudzha area, fighting continues, but there are no changes so far. It seems the Russians are starting to conduct offensive actions here as well. In the Kharkiv direction, the Russians are still trying to break through closer to the village of Lyptsi, but they have had no success at all. In fact, the activity is minimal, with only one assault attempt per day. The situation near Vovchansk is more interesting. The General Staff reports fighting in the area of the village of Hatyshche, which suggests that Ukrainian forces may be conducting counterattacks, though there is no information of this yet. Battles are also ongoing near the village of Tykhe, but over the past 24 hours, the front line remains unchanged. On another note, a spokesperson for the Kharkiv military group mentioned that the Russians have started deploying conscripts in this direction. However, if things are going so poorly for the Russians, it's puzzling why Ukrainian forces haven't cleared the area of these conscripts. Still, as of today, their front line remains unchanged. In the Kupiansk direction, there are also almost no changes. The Russians are assaulting Ukrainian positions near Sinkivka and Hlushkivka, but they've made no new gains, and the front line remains stable. In the Svatove area, the Russians are aggressively trying to capitalize on their advances. They are attempting to break through to Lozova, launching more than 10 assaults in a day, but so far have had no new successes. To the south, there is also significant activity. The Russians are storming Novoyegorivka, attempting to break through toward Druzhilubivka, Grekivka, and continuing the assaults on Makiyivka. However, the situation remains unchanged for now. In the Kreminna direction, assaults on Nevske continue, and in the Dibrova area, they are trying to break through into the Serebryansky Forest. However, Ukrainian forces are successfully repelling all attacks, and the front line remains stable. In the Siversk direction, the Russians conducted one attack near Vyimka, but there has been no significant activity in this area, and the front line remains unchanged. However, It's important to note that they are actively striking Ukrainian rear positions with recorded shelling of Mykolaiivka and Shurove. In the Chasiv Yar direction, the Russians are attempting to assault on the outskirts of the city and are reportedly advancing toward the village of Stupachki. However, the Ukrainian forces have successfully repelled all attacks and the front line remains stable for now. In the Toretsk direction, the activity continues as the Russians push towards the outskirts of Toretsk, attempting to gain a foothold. Fighting is ongoing for Olhivka and Dachne. However, after Ukrainian forces pushed the Russians back near New York, there have been no further changes on this front. In the Pokrovsk direction, the Russians continue to heavily shell the entire frontline area, aiming to disrupt Ukrainian logistics. They persist in trying to break through to the Mirnograd-Kostiantynivka highway, launching assaults on Ukrainian positions near Mirolubivka, then Vozdvizhenka, Novoalexandrivka, and advancing across fields towards Tarasivka. Despite these efforts, they have made no progress for almost a month, and Ukrainian forces hold the advantage in this area. The situation is more challenging near Grodivka, Novogrodivka, Seledove, and Ukrainsk, where combat continues. Russian claims about capturing Lysivka, located near Novogrodivka, remain unconfirmed, and the front line has stayed unchanged over the past day. In the Kurakhove direction, fighting continues near Georgievka as the Russians attempt to break through near Hostre to push Ukrainian forces from a significant section of the front. Russians have even claimed they managed to push Ukrainian troops back, but this information remains unverified. For now, it's known that battles are ongoing. Russian forces are also trying to expand control around the village of Kostiantynivka, but no changes to the front line have been reported. In the Vuhledar direction, battles for the city of Vuhledar itself continue, and there has been heavy shelling in the area around Velika Novosilka. However, despite recent Russian advances near Vodiane and Zolota Neva, no new changes along the front line have been observed. In the Zaporizhzhia direction, the Russians continue their attempts to break through towards Malatokmachka, carrying out shelling, but no changes have been reported along the front line, and the situation remains stable. In the Kherson direction, the situation also remains steady. Shelling of the right bank continues, along with minor offensive activity near Kozachi Lahiri. However, there have been no changes along the front line. Meanwhile, Putin personally decided to comment on the situation regarding NATO countries allowing strikes on Russian territory.
В последние дни мы видим и слышим, как на очень высоком уровне Великобритании и США муссируется тема о том, что киевский режим сможет наносить удары вглубь территории России западными вооружениями большой дальности. И, судя по всему, это решение либо вот-вот будет принято, либо, судя по всему, вообще уже принято. И эта вещь, конечно, экстраординарная. Хотелось попросить прокомментировать то, что происходит.
Происходит попытка подмены понятий. Потому что речь не идет о разрешении или запрете киевскому режиму наносить удары по российской территории. Он и так наносит с помощью беспилотных летательных аппаратов и другими средствами. Но когда речь идет об использовании высокоточного оружия большой дальности западного производства, это совершенно другая история. Дело в том, что я уже об этом говорил, и любые эксперты это подтвердят, и у нас, и на Западе, наносить удары современными высокоточными системами большой дальности западного производства украинская армия не в состоянии. Она не может этого делать. Это возможно только с использованием разведданных со спутников, которыми Украина не располагает. Это данные только со спутников или Евросоюза, либо на Соединенных Штатах, в общем, с натовских спутников. Это первое. Второе, и очень важно, может быть, ключевое, заключается в том, что полетные задания в эти ракетные системы могут, по сути, вносить только военнослужащие стран НАТО. Украинские военнослужащие делать это не могут. И поэтому речь идет не о том, чтобы разрешать украинскому режиму наносить удары по России этим оружием, или не разрешать. Речь идет о том, чтобы принять решение о том, что страны НАТО напрямую участвуют в военном конфликте или нет. Если это решение будет принято, это будет означать не что иное, как прямое участие стран НАТО, Соединенных Штатов, европейских стран в войне на Украине. Это их прямое участие. И это уже, конечно, существенным образом меняет саму суть, саму природу конфликта. Это будет означать, что страны НАТО, США, европейские страны воюют с Россией. А если это так, то, имея в виду изменение самой сути этого конфликта, мы будем принимать соответствующие решения, исходя из тех угроз, которые нам будут создаваться.
In general, threats have started again. Meanwhile, before the elections in the US, a Trump ally and vice presidential candidate talked about how they see the end of this war. Friends, listen very carefully.
Wants this war to end. Ukraine wants this war to end. Europe, which, by the way, has underfunded this war while American taxpayers have been very generous to the Ukrainians, the Europeans want this war to end because it's jacking up their energy prices. So I think what this looks like is Trump sits down, he says to the Russians, the Ukrainians, the Europeans, you guys need to figure out what does a peaceful settlement look like. And what it probably looks like is something like the current line of demarcation between Russia and Ukraine. That becomes like a demilitarized zone. It's heavily fortified so the Russians don't invade again. Ukraine remains its independent sovereignty. Russia gets the guarantee of neutrality from Ukraine. It doesn't join NATO. It doesn't join, some of these sort of allied institutions. And I think that's ultimately what this looks like. And by the way, the Germans and other countries have to fund some Ukrainian reconstruction.
Essentially, he's talking about the complete defeat of Ukraine, requiring it to give up all occupied territories and not join NATO. If this is Trump's plan, it's certainly dreadful. But then he continued.
What are we there for? Man, it's a tough question. And I think some people have convinced themselves that this is like the great humanitarian mission of our time. And I think that's what drives some of it, even though I think it's fake and it's wrong. I think some people have convinced themselves this is like a war of good versus evil, right? Or Russia evil, Ukraine good. And once you get yourself in that fairy tale mindset, you can justify a lot of stupid activity and a lot of stupid decisions. The truth is the Russians shouldn't have invaded, but the Ukrainians have got a lot of corruption problems too, right? It's a little bit more complicated than that. And unfortunately, you have no American leader who's willing to actually understand what's really going on over there. I mean, I think that some people, are going to get rich from that war. BlackRock and some of these major financial institutions talking about spending hundreds of billions of dollars on Ukrainian reconstruction. We know the stock prices of defense contractors have skyrocketed since the Ukraine war started. So it's like a complicated mixture, right?
Friends, what he said is partially true. There is a degree of truth about corruption and the fact that many companies want to profit from Ukraine's reconstruction, although what they plan to reconstruct, if they are going to return territories to Russia, is a big question. But that's not the issue right now. After his interview, it seems that he is as much as politician as a ball made of manure, since he doesn't understand on a global scale what a Russian victory over Ukraine would mean. And what he voiced is indeed a Russian victory, and nothing else can be called it. And if that happens, the US will be in trouble. He doesn't understand how low the US could fall. So if this is how they want to end the war, it will be a US catastrophe. And the world will be ruled by bandits represented by Russia, Iran, North Korea, and China, which will actively sponsor them. And Solovyov will talk about how they defeated NATO countries on Ukrainian territory. So what do you think about this? Be sure to leave your opinion in the comments. And that's all from me. So please, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell to stay updated on all the latest news. Thank you for watching, and see you next time. Bye-bye.